was the worst time of your life, and how did you get through it?
Okay, so there are two times, and one kind of feeds into the next. A precursor to that, my dad was a physicist and my mom was a choreographer and a dancer. So two very different worlds. And I think growing up, I always thought that I had to choose either science or art. And so I chose art, and that's the only side of me that I really kind of cultivated the most. And so when it came to when I lost my mom, which was the worst time in my life, and just going through grieving and trying to contend with losing this woman who was not only, you know, my mom, my guide, my provider, but was also my biggest inspiration. And she always said, oh, please, Sansan, if you can do anything but art, please do something else. But if you can't, if you can't see yourself being happy with anything else, being fulfilled, and you just are going to be miserable, then you go for it with all your might. And you hang on to it, and you just fiercely, and I think a lot of my tenacity comes from her and from that inspiration. So at the time of losing her, I was an actor, which is what I pursued from teenage and on. And the funny thing about acting is that it doesn't, I really love the craft, but the lifestyle didn't really sit with my kind of more proactive nature. There's something very passive about being an actor. You're waiting for the audition. You're waiting for the callback. You're waiting for somebody to pick you for a role. You know, you're constantly waiting. You know, most actors, most of the work they do is in class. And that gets very frustrating to somebody like me. I'm not good with the waiting. I'm like, let me get up and do something about it. So I guess I did have a very entrepreneurial nature from a young age, but it took a while to figure it out. So as I was getting over the grief and, you know, processing through the grief of losing my mom, I sat down and wrote my first screenplay. So that was kind of my first, I'd say, taking matters into my hand. I said, you know what? I'm not waiting for somebody to write the perfect movie for me. I'm going to write one. And I sat down and wrote it. And a few years later, and a lot of phone calls and hustling and emails and follow-ups, I did manage to raise $500,000, and we shot the movie. And it's called Dreamin' American. And so it's about weaved stories of different immigrants. Which kind of leads me to where I am now, which is the second hardest thing that I've been through, but in a way almost a natural progression. So I evolved into screenwriting and eventually into producing, and I had this idea for an app, and I happened to hear that Apple was doing was casting for a show called Planet of the Apps. That's kind of like a Shark Tank for apps. And I thought, okay, what the heck, I'll submit. And I submitted a 1-minute pitch video, and lo and behold, I kept getting called back and bumped through the ranks and made it all the way to the finals.
Yeah. So
that kind of what catapulted me to now to, you know, diving in full on to founding a startup. So those are...
Okay, so what usually pushed you through and helped you through any time you had something really tough going on in your life?
I mean, I'm very, very resilient. I really bless every moment and every experience of adversity that I had to face growing up, because it made me this resilient. I don't usually lose sight, even in the sucky moments. I remember I went through a really rough time a few years ago, and I kept saying, you know, about seeing the light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
I said, I'm seeing it. I know it's there. I'm almost feeling like the first light beams start touching my face. I know the light is there. I know there is a way out. It just sometimes in the moment, it sucks to be stuck in the tunnel. But I never lose sight of that.
Yeah.
What helps me? People.
Yeah.
People reminding me who I am. Myself reminding me who I am. And how I've overcome so many more difficult things.
You said people reminding you who you are. What is that exactly?
I think that sometimes, and I heard that in a talk the other day, because we have a limited capacity for our memory, for our long-term memory, it's the more traumatic and the harsher moments that we remember more. And so when we're anxious or when, we feel a bit on edge, then that's what comes to the forefront, and you forget everything you've achieved, and suddenly you feel like you're nobody and you've achieved nothing, and only the bad stuff comes up, right?
Yeah.
So it's important, I think, to have the kind of people around you who remind you, hey, don't you talk like that about my girl. This woman, you are an amazing person, and you've done this and this and this and that, and with time I think you learn how to do that with yourself. But it never harms to have some really supportive people around you. I think that building a strong community of I call my close friends sisters. I mean, it's my family of choice, and it's very important for me to have that.
Okay, I love that. So what's the drive behind your success right now?
My tenacity again. I mean, I will not rest until I get what I am looking to achieve. My mom used to tell I have two older sisters, and the middle one, she was dancing, and my mom was a dancer and a choreographer, and she was a good dancer technically, but she was very shy. So when they would bring out this choreographer to do the end of year from the ballet school end of year piece, she wouldn't really push herself to the front. And my mom kept telling her, it's not enough to be good, you got to be seen.
Yeah.
And she also said, listen, if you strive for here, then the best you're gonna do is get to here. So why not strive for the moon and the stars? That's what she said to me. Why not strive for the moon and the stars? You're gonna get a lot higher than if you didn't. So that's, yeah.
Oh my God. What's the best part about your life right now?
Just doing what I'm doing, being able to create something that I believe is going to revolutionize the world, something that I think is going to make a true and lasting impact on emotional well-being, teaching people how to very easily tap into their dreams, tap into their subconscious through their dreams in a way that seems very fun, but also helps deal with a lot of the issues, which is what we really do in dreams, is deal with all these strong issues. That's why these dreams sometimes they can seem really outrageous, because we are processing, we're actually, believe it or not, moderating our emotions in regards to events as we're processing through it in the dream, so we're not so overwhelmed by it come the morning. So our anxiety about, whether it's a fear of abandonment, a failure, of judgment, is not so, but in the dream it looks so scary and it's so emotionally intense. But it's a way for us to kind of practice it and find creative solutions. And it's a way for us to kind of run the scenario in a way that's very emotionally real, but physically not real. So we can't actually be harmed, and there's no actual monsters, and we're not really killing people, they're not really killing us. But it's a way to process through those hard emotions so that they're not controlling us all day.
Yeah. So do you have anywhere that people could go for more information, or do you have
Yeah,
a launch date?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to start a phased rollout. So we're going to start rolling out in groups. So if you go to dreameapp.com, DREAME.com, and sign up there. You will also have opportunity after you signed up. You'll get the thank you page and you have an opportunity to share in social media. And the more you share and the more people who come through your code, through your share, the more you get bumped up the list and you get to be in that first download.
Okay, thank you so much.